When I was listening to you just a moment ago, it seemed like you were also making reference to due process issues. Is that correct? The 14th Amendment, that nobody should be deprived of life, liberty, nor property without due process?
That's right. Oftentimes courts will say, there's no substantial reason for why we should undergo every single due process issue as long as we give you a hearing, you can say what you want, and there's no sort of deprivation of life, liberty, or property. But there is deprivation, and it is in many different ways. Due process protects against arbitrary decisions, but those arbitrary decisions don't just stop at wrong decisions, but stop at whether the court has jurisdiction to begin with, and it also has to do with what you're being deprived of by nature of your divorce. And many of those factors we discussed, anything from financial issues within marriage to your house taken away or forced to sell, or custody with children, or your legal identity, or all of those types of things. And it's good to write a list of what those rights that are being taken away from you are, because without due process, those are being taken away from you arbitrarily through the state's tyranny.
So I've heard somebody say that the entire arena of family law has become a domain of constitutional violations and usurptions. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, there's a lot of, I think, evidence beyond just assertions that there's corruption within the court systems, and a lot of it has to do with people's understandings of what happens, what legal authorities exist, and what constitutional rights exist. Often there's an excuse that if you don't bring up your rights in trial, that you're not entitled to them, that you somehow waive them. That's not the case with fundamental rights. So if you're deprived of due process, or deprived of equal protection of the laws, or deprived of your marriage, those are fundamental rights that cannot be waived. And so even though courts will say, we didn't bring this issue up before in advance, fundamental rights cannot be waived, and laws that infringe on fundamental rights cannot be assumed to be constitutional, because there's generally a presumption that laws that the legislature passes are constitutional because they're sworn by that. But laws that infringe on fundamental rights, and if you bring that up, cannot be assumed to be constitutional. It must be proven to be so through what's called a strict scrutiny test.
The laws that are passed should be constitutional.
Absolutely. Legislators are bound by oath to pass constitutional laws that are compliant with both state and federal constitution.
So if there is a law that is not compliant with a constitution, should we have to go through a long process to repeal it, or should it just be immediately invalidated?
So the opposite of a general law is a special law.
Right.
Special laws are basically laws that grant certain individuals privileges and immunities that are not granted to other people. And many state constitutions say that you can just go right to your legislator and repeal it because it's not constitutional, and they should overturn it immediately once it's recognized.
Do you have to have a vote to repeal an unconstitutional law?
That's not described in specifics, so I don't know the answer to that. It would seem that legislators would have the incentive to repeal it on their own rather than face embarrassment through the court system, because once people understand what's happening and they challenge it in the court system, it's going to be very embarrassing for the legislature. So I would strongly suggest that the legislator take it upon their own initiative to repeal unconstitutional laws when it's recognized, because otherwise it's going to be overturned inevitably in the court system, and it's going to be very embarrassing for legislators.
It would seem to me like a lot of family law is based on for example, the deprivation of the due process protections and process, those guarantees that we were supposed to be granted by the Constitution. If that's the case, it would seem like a lot of family law should be scrapped immediately.
I would agree with that statement, and I think there's a big assumption both from the court system and from the people themselves that when you enter into, or when you seek a divorce, that things are not going to turn out all shimmery, because you're dividing assets, you're dividing the child's time, people.
And that's the part that I think that we're talking about, and I know you don't mean it this way, but talk about it, like it's clean surgical terms. We're dividing something. We're ripping children apart. We're tearing them apart limb by limb, heart by heart.
And many people might call that bombastic language, but I'd like to talk about how New York views marriage and divorce, because they use the term as an economic partnership. marriage is no longer a social institution. It is in New York an economic partnership.
Does it have any religious significance at all? Just economic?
I don't think it has religious significance, but the point being is that when you split children in the sense of custody, if you're looking at marriage and divorce as simply an economic function, basically you're also acknowledging that the children are an economic unit, and you're just dividing that in half. So it's
So
not
they're no
really,
longer people.
they're no longer people, and I'm it's not me using bombastic or exaggerated language. If New York itself is saying that marriage is an economic institution or partnership, then
Well, they're going to divide the assets.
They're going to divide the assets, including the children. So it's really a dehumanization of the states to call marriage an economic function, because there's a lot more to it than that.
Yeah, and the thing is that strong marriages, strong families create strong states. They are the foundation of our society. I would make the case then, therefore, that the state has a compelling interest to see strong marriages and strong families developed. Because when the opposite occurs, you have social costs, you have economic costs of the states, you have taxpayer costs that taxpayers are not being told about, you have the individual costs that are being borne by the children and the families. But I look like you wanted to say something.
No, I definitely